Hello, my lovelies. Welcome to this episode of What's on the Menu with Dr. Danni. We are still working our way through your challenge foods, and this is part 2 of the challenge foods episode on chocolate and sweets, the #1 challenge food that you guys told us about in our surveys on social media. So today we are diving into some more goodies to help you with those cravings for chocolates and sweets. But before we get into the kitchen, make sure you like, subscribe, and share. It helps out the channel. And click the little bell so you get a notification every time we drop a new video. Let's get into the kitchen. Hello, my lovelies. Welcome back to this episode of What's on the Menu with Dr. Danni. I am Dr. Danni. Today we are back in the kitchen talking about your challenge foods. What foods did you find most challenging to eliminate when trying to adopt a healthier lifestyle? And of course, this week we are still working on chocolate and sweets, the #1 challenge food in our survey. And today, what I've got for you are my absolute favorite. Something I've used to replace store-bought protein bars for after workout or after playing really hard. And just as a quick on-the-go snack as well. We are also going to make my famous raw chocolate packed full of nutrients and essential fatty acids, so there is no guilt in consuming this. Let's get in the kitchen. We're starting off today with one of my favorite guilt-free snacks, which I'm calling Pro Bakes. They're nutrient dense, absolutely delicious, and similar to no-bake cookies, but replaces the sugary contents of that recipe with bodybuilding proteins and backs it up with a delicious taste. So let's get into the ingredients. We've got 3/4 of a cup of creamy peanut butter, 1/3 of a cup of raw honey, and 2 tablespoons of coconut oil. I can tell it's summertime. My coconut oil is starting to liquefy at room temperature. And then our dry ingredients. We've got 2 cups of rolled oats. I've got a mixture here of about a tablespoon of chia seeds with 1/4 teaspoon of spirulina powder. I have 2 tablespoons of flaxseed meal, and then I have about 1/4 teaspoon each of salt and cinnamon. And of course, we can't have any kind of yummy goodness without some dark chocolate chips. And I have about 3 tablespoons of that here. We're going to start out by taking our wet ingredients and getting them combined in a double boiler. I've created this double boiler by putting water in the bottom of a saucepan and placing a bowl that fits into the top of it and sits right on the edge without touching the bottom of the pan. We're going to place our peanut butter, coconut oil, and honey into this bowl, allowing them to melt and mix together until they're nice and smooth. We're going to turn our heat on to about medium-low and just allow that to warm up. It will heat the glass bowl, and you can also use a metal bowl for this so that the heat distributes evenly and we get nice, gentle melting without worrying about burning our ingredients. So I'm going to go ahead and get my peanut butter in here. My coconut oil, which is almost completely melted all by itself. And then lastly, I'm going to add in the honey. We're going to give these a good mix and let them start to liquefy a little bit, coming back and stirring them occasionally to make sure we get nice creamy mix of ingredients. So while we're letting our moist ingredients boil down and melt up and mix nice and smoothly, we're gonna go ahead and put together our dry ingredients. So I'm gonna add in here, again, 2 cups of rolled oats. I've got about 3 tablespoons of flaxseed meal and about a tablespoon of chia seeds with a 1/4 teaspoon of spirulina powder. Now, spirulina is a sea vegetable and it's packed full of protein and B vitamins and magnesium and potassium, sodium. It is also full of iron and iodine, so it's great for immunity as well as supercharging our body's ability to absorb and utilize. The last thing I'm going to add to this is our salt and ground cinnamon, and I've got about a 1/4 teaspoon of each. So we're going to mix that all in together and get it well combined, and then set that aside. Now the chocolate chips will be added in very last ingredient. I don't want them to melt too much, and what we are melting down and getting into that nice liquid form with the peanut butter and honey and coconut oil is going to be very warm and melt the chocolate chips if we put them in too soon. So I'm going to leave them out of this dry mixture until the very last. While we're waiting on our liquid ingredients to finish melting, I've gone ahead and prepared this cookie sheet with some parchment paper in it, and I'm leaving the parchment paper overhanging on all of the edges because we're going to use this later on as a handle. So here we are with our peanut butter, honey, and coconut oil mixture all melted down nice and creamy, and we've prepared our dry ingredients. So what we're going to do now is combine these two together and then add our chocolate chips in last. This bowl with your liquid mixture is going to be really hot coming off of the double boiler, so make sure that you're using some sort of something to keep from burning yourself. And we're going to just pour this in a little bit at a time, maybe about half to get started. And then I'm going to mix all of this together and add in the rest. And we're going to mix it till it's completely combined and looks very much like the no-bake recipe would look, minus our melted chocolate. Scraping the bottom of the bowl here. I don't want to leave any of that goodness in there. I want it all in my bars, in my pro bakes here. I'm just kind of folding this in now at this point to get a good mix. You want to make sure you're getting everything from the bottom and giving it a good mix in until everything is completely coated. At that point, then the mixture should be cool enough for us to add our chocolate chips in and mix those in nice and thoroughly, and then we'll get it ready to set up. We've got our entire mixture mixed up. The next step is to take this mixture and transfer it into our parchment lined pan and spread it all out. So I'm just going to kind of make a nice mound here in the middle, and just slowly with my spoon, and I like using usually this silicone spoon because Usually it doesn't stick this much. And you're gonna spread this out nice and evenly. The other thing that you can do is get another piece of parchment paper and pat that down. I don't think this is gonna fill up this pan all the way, so I'm gonna fold my parchment paper over a bit and just start to move this into shape, pressing it out. Same thing here. Until I get it the thickness that I want it to be. And you can really go as thick or as thin with this as you want to. Once this is in shape, what we'll do is set it in the refrigerator and let it set up for at least an hour, and then we can come back and cut it into bars. Here's our completed no bake. I've lifted this out of the pan using the parchment paper and just peeled the parchment paper back to set it down on here. What we're gonna do from here is to cut this into bars or slices, however you wanna do it, squares. I kinda like thinner protein bar type slices where I'll kind of cut this in half. Cut it in slices and then cut them in half and get my bars ready. And then I'm gonna wrap these in some foil and put them in my refrigerator where they'll keep for about 2 to 3 weeks in the fridge. We're starting off with our main ingredients, which is the raw coconut and the cacao wafers, or cacao butter. I have a wafer form here. We're gonna combine this, melt it all together, and then mix into that our carob powder, our cacao powder, and some chocolate nibs. And then just to give it a little bit of fun flavor, and this would all be perfect, I'm going to also include in this some orange extract, give it a little bit of an orange flavor. Now, optionally, we could use a little sweetener, such as the raw agave or even some yucca syrup to sweeten this up. but honestly, I like mine nice and dark. We're gonna get this raw chocolate recipe started by melting together our raw coconut and the cacao butter. And I'm doing this using a double boiler. Now, if you don't have a double boiler set, which is a pan with a pan inside of it, you can easily make one by finding a bowl that fits inside your saucepan, like so. You want to make sure that the bowl does not touch the bottom of the pan so that there's room for water inside your saucepan to boil and heat up very slowly the glass without burning any of your ingredients. You could also melt these in the microwave and then mix them together until they're nice. So I'm going to go ahead and add in my coconut meat, my raw coconut. And if you can buy this in a glass jar, I recommend it because, as you can see, this is kind of slimy. This stuff is really solid when you buy it, which means it needs to be melted a little bit to get it out of the jar. All right, so let's get the rest of this raw coconut into the pot here. We're going to turn this on a medium-low heat, and I'm going to add in the cacao butter and let this start to melt down. We want to mix it occasionally as it's melting, making sure that it doesn't boil at all while it's cooking. And our cacao butter. You can buy this cacao butter also in just a jar of the butter. That too, I would recommend that you preheat it a little bit and melt it down because it's really difficult to get out of the container in its solid form. So we're going to put this on kind of a medium-low and just let it melt up and do its thing. The water will come to a boil and it will start to slowly melt down our butters and our coconut here into a nice liquidy form. In the meantime, we're gonna go give our chocolate ingredients some attention. All right, so I've got my coffee grinder set up, and this one is a nice one. It's a Hamilton Beach. And I really like this one because the cup itself comes right out. So it's really easy to clean up and use. What we're gonna do is just put our tablespoon of cacao nibs right down in there. Put our lid on. And press the button and let it powder up. And there we are. We have our cacao nibs nice and ground up. We've got a lovely little powder for them, and we'll mix that in. So let's go ahead and get our dry ingredients prepped to get mixed into our raw coconut and cacao butter mixture. I'm going to just combine in this bowl all of our dry ingredients here. So we're going to start with our cacao nibs, and I'm just going to toss those in. And you can see at the bottom here when you're grinding this up, some of it sticks to the bottom. So you just want to loosen that up. Make sure you're getting all of that chocolatey goodness out of there. You know, a lot of people are surprised when I tell them that they don't need to cut chocolate out of their diet when they're trying to eat healthier. What I do tell them is that you really need to be aware of the kind of chocolate that you're consuming. So what we have here is chocolate in its rawest form. And because it hasn't been overly processed or had extra chemicals added to it, then we still have all of the nutritional content. And the cravings for chocolate really are about the body needing things like magnesium, potassium, sodium, also protein and good essential fatty acids. Those are all inherent in healthy, raw, unprocessed chocolate. So I've gone ahead and I've added in my cacao powder and then carob powder here in the last. And I've got everything in this little bowl. And you can use a larger bowl if you want. I'm just kind of, we have such a small amount of ingredients. I'm just going to use this one here. You're going to mix this up completely so that everything is mixed in nice and evenly. You don't have any pockets at the bottom or anywhere, so that these flavors and the chocolate itself mixes in very evenly into our liquid mixture with our raw coconut and cacao butter. I will say, you know, because of the content of the chocolate, especially the caffeine content, I think it's important for people to understand that you can't go and gorge yourself on this still. We still need to maintain a nice, healthy balance and create that diet that feeds us completely. But there are ways to incorporate these craving foods like chocolate and that sweet taste in a way that we satisfy that and are providing our body with the nutrients and the nutritional content that we absolutely need and that those cravings are telling us to go get. So with the chocolate, you know, I mentioned about the fatty acids, the essential fatty acids, your magnesium, potassium, sulfur. It is a stimulant for the body without overstimulating the way that maybe stripped down caffeines or coffees or something of the sort might. You're getting a good balance in there, and the caffeine content is not as potent because of the other nutrient contents in this raw chocolate and this healthy, no guilt snack that allows you to have that without stripping out the nutrients the way that coffee or candy chocolates do, or energy drinks or things like that. So let's go check on our liquid mixture and see where we're at. This is looking pretty good. You can see that it's pretty much liquid. We want to make sure there's no chunks of anything in there. And it kind of starts to take on this cream, liquid creamy texture. And this is when we know that it's ready. So we're going to take this off of here. And I want you to note the steam coming off of my pan. That is not coming off of the top. That's actually coming from the water boiling underneath. We're going to turn off the heat. And then you need hand protection. Wear gloves, oven mitts, whatever you need to remove the bowl from here. Some double boilers have a handle on the top so you can just pick it up and take it off. But I highly recommend, to avoid any kind of steam burn, that you use gloves or pot holders or something of the like to protect your hands. This is also the point where if you were adding sweetener to it, you would add that in now and stir it in nicely. And we're also then going to add in our flavoring. So I'm adding in a orange extract flavoring, and we're gonna put in a half a teaspoon of that and mix it in really well before getting to the point where we add in our dry ingredients. That smells so good. All right, we have mixed in our flavoring here, our extract. If you wanted to, you could add in your sweetener at this point. And we're gonna slowly begin to add in our dry ingredients, whisking this the whole time. We want to get everything completely incorporated so we have a nice, smooth, creamy texture. You could do this with like a mixer, a hand mixer, or in your stand mixer if you wanted to. I personally find it much more satisfying to sit here with the whisk and just get things mixed in. Also, with the electric mixers, I noticed that I tend to overbeat them. It's easy to just walk away and not pay attention, and you really need to be aware of when this is starting to seize or start to get really thick. So as we get everything mixed in, I'm going to start to increase my speed in whipping this. Until it starts to seize up. And by seizing, that means it's going to start to get thick. Almost to a runny mousse consistency. And at that point, then you can pour it into whatever you're going to use to mold it. Now you can do this in just a plain baking sheet and then cut it into bars. You can put it into molds. I've got some fun molds that we're going to work with today, just because I feel like being nerdy. All right, this is starting to seize for me. It's starting to get a little more difficult to whisk. I can feel it starting to thicken up. We're gonna give it a little bit longer and then it'll be ready to put in the molds. Here we are ready to mold our chocolate. What I've done is I've gotten some chocolate molds here, or just, you know, some silicone molds. These are washed, they're clean and dry. You want to make sure that you prep them probably the day before to give them time to completely air dry, because any little bit of water or moisture that's on this is going to create pockets or cause your chocolate not to set up properly. And I've transferred my chocolate into a measuring cup here just to make it easier for me to pour. It's still going to be messy. And then I'm sure that I'm going to have some extra chocolate when I'm done pouring these molds. So I also have just a regular small cookie sheet that we're going to put the balance of the chocolate in, kind of spread it out and let it set up in there. So I'm going to start by just very slowly, and you want a good clean pour here, filling up my molds. And you kind of have to move sort of quickly with this, or you will start to get sediment at the bottom of the chocolate. And I'll even stir this up a little bit as I'm filling up my molds. To make sure I don't have any kind of sediment, anything gathering at the bottom of the mixture. Keep it all nice and even. And once I have these filled, we're gonna put them in the oven, or in the oven. Once I have these filled, we're gonna put them into the refrigerator or into the freezer to set up. If I need a quick set, about 20-30 minutes, I'll stick it in the freezer. But the best way to set it is in the refrigerator and let it sit for a good hour to hour and a half until they're fully firmed up and set. Here we are with our chocolate ready in its molds. We're gonna take this and pop it in the fridge for about an hour or until everything is solid, and then take it out. For the molds, we'll be able to simply pop the chocolates right out like you would with any other molding chocolate. In the pan, what I will do is take a hot knife and slice it into squares that we can then put into an airtight container and store. Here we are with our finished chocolate. This is the leftover amount that I just poured into the pan. I'm gonna take a piece of parchment paper here, set that on top, and we're just gonna turn it right over and give it a little tap. Actually, I don't even need to do that. And it just slides right out. From here, we can cut it into pieces or smash it, get some good demo therapy going, and just have little chunks. it's just as easy to remove from these molds. You just kind of give them a little bit of a bend to try and loosen them up just a little. And then turn them over. I'm going to push just a little bit on these. And they pretty much just fall right out. So I'm going to do that with the rest of the molds that we have prepared. Here we are with the chocolate removed from the molds. Ready to be stored. The best way to store this chocolate is in an airtight container, in the refrigerator, or someplace nice and cold. All right, I wanted to take a minute to speak with you guys about some other options that you have that I don't keep in my house because of severe allergies, and that is nuts, nut butters, and then also in that are dried fruits. I don't have an allergy to dried fruits, if anyone's asking, but to nuts, I do. So I really only keep peanut butter in my house because I can eat peanuts, but I cannot eat tree nuts. And things like almonds, walnuts, cashews, pistachios, pecans, those are great on-the-go, quick snacks that help get a lot of protein and nutrients into the body and help with those cravings for sweets. You can add to that then some dried fruit to get just a little bit of sweet and tartness, and those things will go a long way in helping to satiate cravings and help to rebalance the body. They are great on the go, fast food, do almost nothing to prepare foods, the same as fresh fruits are. So I want to encourage you to get out there and play with all types of tree nuts. Almonds and cashews are fantastic. Walnuts are also wonderful if you don't have an allergy. If you do have a sensitivity, then there are some other options as well. You could do things like seeds, things like pumpkin seeds or sunflower seeds, or really any other kind of seed out there that we typically eat, even including things like chia seed or flaxseed in your prepared foods like we did in the recipes last week and this week, goes a long way for providing nutrients that helps to combat those cravings by boosting the body's stores of those particular nutrients that create the cravings in the first place. So go have fun. Play with your food. Remember, the best way to support your body is by giving it food in the most raw, natural form. That's it for this episode of What's on the Menu. Thank you for joining me today. Make sure you stay tuned for the next episode. We will be talking about coffee and caffeinated drinks, providing you with some great nutrition-filled alternatives to caffeine and coffee. Till then, guys, be kind to yourselves, be kind to each other, and don't forget to play with your food.